And that result has really opened up the group as far as qualification for the knockout rounds is concerned, heading into the final round of fixtures next week. Had Germany failed to beat Sweden, their fate would have been out of their own hands. But now that they have 3 points on the board, the reigning world champions will almost certainly go through with a victory against South Korea on Wednesday. With 6 points in the bag, Mexico will also go through as group toppers if they avoid defeat at the hands of Sweden, while the Scandinavians can also get to 6 points with a victory and potentially force a 3-way tie. In that scenario, goal difference is the first tiebreaker, and if that too is equal, then a head-to-head record will decide who goes through from the group. Matt Holland, what an exhilarating match that was. Not perhaps the highest in terms of quality across the 90 minutes, but bags and bags of drama.
Yeah, of course there was a lot riding on the game going into it. The amount of pressure, maybe externally, on Germany after the game against Mexico, and I think Sweden went into it feeling pretty confident after watching that. But to use your words, it was highly exhilarating, even at watching it early hours of the morning. So it was great to see Germany come through.
Before we get into the nitty-gritties of the match, do you think it was a fair result, just based on the performance that you saw from both teams?
Tough one, really, because you could argue Sweden deserves something. But again, before going into too much detail on the tactical element, they did make some mistakes at the end, which you could probably balance off and say they didn't quite deserve it. But Germany, I thought, played very, very well in the second half.
You mentioned the Swedish mistakes, and that was going to be my next question, because, taking nothing away from Toni Kroos and that spectacular free kick that he scored, Sweden would feel like they, one, shouldn't have conceded the free kick in the first place, and two, surely they could have defended it better.
Yeah, I think if you rewind just a few phases of play before that, John Jagetti had a shot, late on from a ridiculous angle. The physical ability that he has, he should have just taken the ball in the corner. He could have protected it, maybe shooting a little bit for glory. A bit selfishly also, may I add, coming on as a substitute. And of course, to concede the free kick at that point in the game, knowing what has been going on with VAR, I think it was a very immature and naive tackle from the forward man to give away a free kick there. But you can't really argue with the quality of Toni Kroos.
A rather incredible statistic came up during that match. Of course, Germany are the most consistent force at the World Cups. But they had failed to win at the World Cup from a half-time deficit in 8 previous games going back to 1974. What an incredible time to turn it around. And as we heard Jogi Low say there, the team just never gave up.
Well, we spoke for an abundance of time during yesterday's 2 shows, about German mentality, the steeliness that they have, the ability to not panic. They just go about their business, again, without being robotic. They believe in themselves. There's an air of confidence / arrogance where they keep playing and keep playing to the way that they know. I don't think Jogi Low even looked too stressed on the pitch, really. He looked his normal on the sideline. Sorry, he looked his usual self, and Germany didn't look erratic at all to me.
Would Sweden feel hard done by with this result? Because there was a genuine penalty claim on Marcus Berg in the 15th minute. And another baffling scenario, Matt, where we didn't see the VAR being used, for what appeared to be a difficult decision to make on the field.
I think 9 times out of 10, that's a penalty. The 1 time out of 10 maybe happened last night, where people are thinking the VAR will come in place. But it's been great for 2 days, isn't it, the VAR? And then, of course, the game yesterday, where it probably should have been used to definitely award that penalty, it wasn't. Which brings us back to the question in the beginning, is it ready for it? So, again, there's that inconsistency is coming for sure with the VAR system.
Okay, one final question before I take you to our tactical board. As much as Germany, did well to get the win right at the end, this was far from a vintage German display, wasn't it? They were uncharacteristically shaky at the back, vulnerable to the counter in the first half. It probably played better after Jerome Boateng was sent off in the 83rd minute.
Yeah, I think you know, in the 2 games now, they've been very shaky at the back. I mean, is that complacency from those players, especially at the heart of the back 4, Boateng and Hummels in the first game? Of course, Boateng, Hummels didn't play this game, but, you know, they looked shaky. I mean, Boateng is a player with a lot of ability anyway, but he does have that slight slip in him, that silly mistake, as you saw later on in the game with his caution and his sending off.
Okay, why don't you show us, Matty, on the tactical board, how it is that Germany managed to turn things around at halftime? Because they introduced Mario Götze, got Julian Draxler out of the team, and it was pretty much one-way traffic for Germany from there. Yeah,
well, when we spoke about the team beforehand, we thought that Gomez would come in from the reports in the media. He didn't. But when we discussed it, we actually thought that Timo Werner would go and play left side if Gomez started. He didn't, but that's what happened in the second half. So Gomez comes in at the top end, Royce comes into the middle a little bit more, and Timo Werner went outside. Now, Sweden didn't really change too much. For example, they still play the 4-4-2. What did definitely happen was that in midfield, both Kroos and Gundogan, who came in, they played behind the forwards, which allowed Germany to circulate the ball into these areas and penetrate, as you can see from these types of positions here. And in addition to that, Timo Werner had a great deal of space towards the second half of the second half, you know, the last 20 minutes, so to speak, whereby he could actually exploit this area.
Right. And, you know, of course, that was the flank where Germany seemed to be making most of their attacks. One final question from you, Matt, before we wrap up our conversations on this game. How do the rest of the teams in the draw look at Germany now? You know, because we have seen that they are vulnerable. So would the top teams focus on that aspect of Germany? Or, you know, or are Germany even more dangerous now that they've managed to get such a big result without perhaps playing at their best?
I think 2 schools of thought. The first one is that the teams will most definitely look at their vulnerability. But the second thought, for me personally, is that I don't believe now that Germany will continue to show these weaknesses. I think last night was a big turning point in the game. That sole moment of Toni Kroos, who is not just Mr. Consistent, but how to find the word for it. He's a 9 out of 10 player every game.
Yeah.
Club or national team. He hasn't been in 2 games, but that moment is a 10 out of 10 moment.
Yeah.
At the right time, practically the last kick of the game on a tough angle to whip it, top corner. I think that this will be the moment that spurs Germany on to remove all of the uncertainties in this game and the first game, and then go, right, now we mean business, now we're kicking on.
Okay, Matt Holland there predicting that Germany will be a real force now that they've managed to get their first win of the tournament on the board.